Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Project Artemis channel. My name is Emma Hagen and today we're looking at what my opinion is of the top 10 decks for the Atlanta Regionals this weekend. We haven't had any major Western tournaments in the format yet, but we've had both Japanese tournaments and limitless tournaments that we can look forward to and get some data from. We even have two major Japanese tournaments this time around, so we should have a lot of things to be able to give us a good basis. I personally think that the best way to start it off is just to begin immediately. At number 10, we have a deck I have notoriously absolutely hated in the past. Walls. I have faced Walls at EUIC, demolished it, faced Walls at EUIC again, crushed it, faced Walls at locals, completely destroyed it. This deck has been very, very bad. But this is a lot better of a list than any of those I've ever seen. And this just did very, very, very well in Japan. Top 4 out of 5,000 in-person event is nothing to scoff at. And just looking at the list, I can see notable improvements right off the bat. In the past, we've had struggles just finding the basics and walls, but now, with Fan Rotom being a good innovation, you just get to search for triple Giraffe Rig on turn 1 of a single Nest Ball, Arven, Buddy Poffin, Ultra Ball, Artisan, opening it raw. Just like a lot more outs now. And it's also a lot better constructed when it comes to the energies than I've seen typically. I have never faced an opponent who actually plays counter gain in walls, and every single time I've played against walls, I've asked my opponent, why is there no counter gain in your list? I have gotten the same answer twice, I think, and it was from a YouTube video that didn't play it, so they didn't actually know. But counter gain is a very, very good card in a deck that aims to use Crispin and go behind regardless. This is just pretty much a free energy for you. And the deck just does whatever a wall deck is supposed to do. You have relatively consistently setting up your walls. You have Evo for Giraffe Rigs or your Malotics. You have the Arven Buddy Poffin to get multiple of what you need typically. And you even have healing and Poke Vital A if that's the A spec you want to play like this one did. Generally, I don't think it's something that I would highly recommend for Atlanta, but it's also not something that I would discourage that much anymore, and I wouldn't be that surprised if we see a couple of it in day 2. But if you are going on a defensive route, I would much rather play number 9, Pidgeot Control. This deck lost a lot to rotation. Rotom is a big deal. For a Silstone is a very, very big deal. And you also have like minor changes as a Hisuian Heavy Ball, Misfortune Sisters, Silene, Yelche. But you still have a lot of solid options in the format. You have Arven for Buddy Poffin Rescue Board, resulting in a Pidgey and a Cleffa turn 1, which typically should be enough to get you at least some sort of setup. And you even have TM Evo to get the Pidgeotto if you need to, and then second TM Evo to get into Pidgeot. And you're typically allowed to have such a slow game with this deck. And we're also in a very solid position for specifically Nacli control at the moment, because there are very few decks in the format that don't play either Noctowl, Latias, or both. If your opponent benches Latias, they can't typically remove it. They don't play many Switch, they don't play many Turo. If your opponent benches Noctowl, might play a Turo, probably not. You have the corner, you have the fine Sveth Monkey Dory to make sure 60 damage isn't enough to kill you every turn. You should be fine with just that. And if they don't play Latias, you have a very powerful backup plan of putting a Calamitous Wasteland into play, putting down a Chi-Yu that reliably has 290 HP with Hero Escape since Lothrak now has rotated, then you just start milling their options very aggressively. And you always have the attack route now, as it always did, with Lilith Leferi being an absolutely amazing attacker with a counter gain. You can very easily one-shot a Dragapult, and you can take pretty early KOs regardless. I've experienced it with NTV and Control before rotation. That was good. Clefairy is fundamentally the same card, except that it one-shots dragons. I still think there are a lot of issues with the archetype. It has not very many different supporter options, despite Penny, Sorosic, and Boss being very powerful ones, and you did lose a lot of consistency. Getting the Candy Pidgeot is no longer a given like it was pre-rotation. You should be able to get it, but it's going to be a lot more difficult, and if your opponent plays around it and tries to disrupt you, you're just going to have non-games. But generally, I think the deck still is semi-viable and is probably a pretty solid pick for the metagame of Atlanta. If it doesn't do well now, I think it might very well, at the very least, do well in some tournaments further on, where the metagame is a bit more narrow. Onwards to another rogue deck. Number 8, Frostlass Munkidori. This is a deck that has gone under the radar as it should be. This is not exactly a meta deck. Has seen some experimentation before. I know James Cox brought it to regionals. Don't know if he did too well, but I don't think he did too awful either. But this deck just did really, really well in Japan. Got top 8 at a 5,000 player tournament where more or less no one was playing the deck as far as I can see. But this list is also just very good, both in the format and with how the counts look, in my opinion. You just have 3 different powerful supporters, with Arven acting as a boss throughout the mid-game, late game as well. Then you just have a very good strategy of just disrupting your opponent every single turn with Itchy Pull or Corner, and letting your Frostlasses do the heavy work. There are a lot of abilities in the format currently, where the main decks typically either play Area Zero Noctowl or fill their bench with a bunch of Dracloaks. So Freezing Shroud is definitely an ability that is on the rise at the moment. I've seen people experiment with it a few different ways, primarily in Japan. It's doing well at the moment with a type of Tinglu type based builds, where you put a Tinglu in the active as an additional disruption option, but I don't know how much I love that. It might be very good still, though, so it's something that I would definitely experiment with it going further, but going into Atlanta, I would just take a list that has proven itself. This is a card off the Japanese list that has done well. Shaman is not a card we have in format yet. It comes out in the next set. But Shaman is mostly for specifically Wellspring. And decks that specifically play Wellspring typically also play Noctowl. And Nacli is a very good backup plan to have Noctowl against Noctowl to just buy time. Onwards to a bit more of a traditional deck. Number 6 is Arcaladon. I have not played enough games of Arcaladon to know which is the best build. I just know that the card is good, and you can build it in literally any way under the moon. I'm currently having a Poison package on the screen. I don't think that's bad. Petrarund is a good card. You get basically Black Belt as an item card with Blinding Mochi. You just have a lot of versatility. But you can build this in every way under the moon. You can play it with Poison, you can play it with Reverum, you can play it with Double, you can play it with Sork, you can play it with Sireno, I think the card is called. You can pretty much just do anything. You can play with the Dunsparce. I just think that a 300 HP Pokemon that has a very easy to achieve attack cost will probably have a lot of just potential in the format in general. It one-shots most basic 2 prices, it 2-shots everything in the format, it one-shots everything basic, so you just have the initiative on just taking the prize cards whenever you want, and then you can just play around with not having bench 2 prizes if you're ever in a position to do that. You typically play Turos. With the other lists, you might play Scoop Up Cyclones. This is a Hops double list that plays both of them and just is really going hard on Gusts. Kind of like how Sauropod might have done in the past, where just trying to capitalize on evolving basics. Guzma, Azarola, Boss, Turo. The same type of situation. This list doesn't play any additional Pokemon draw aside from Pheasantipity, but that's definitely something you can do as well. Both Revavroom, Zoroark, the Dunsparce have a lot of potential in Archaludon shells. As I said, I don't have enough testing with the archetype to tell you what is the correct one, but I just know that the card is good, and we will definitely see some good success in Atlanta. A card typically has struggled against Cornerstone Ogerpon, but we see you can either play Hop Station EX in a more traditional build, one-shot it with Brave Slash, or you could play Dialga EX in a Poison package to do big damage with Binding Mochi and Perilous Jungle to get the one-shot that way, requiring less energies. With next set, we get an even better Station EX, but we're going to have to settle with the Hop Station EX for now. Onward to the next deck, Gardevoir. I have been a massive hater of Gardevoir ever since rotation. That, granted, not that long ago, but it did lose refinement, which has been the main identity of Gardevoir ever since I started playing with Gardevoir, and ever since everyone started playing with Gardevoir. The appeal of Gardevoir has always been big, strong 1 prizes without much 2 prizes to take advantage of. You have your Gardevoir EX having 310 HP on the bench, and you can remove it with Collapse Stadium or Turo at times, depending on which version you're playing. But with this list, you really don't get to do that. You typically need to have a Mew EX, Pheasantipity EX, maybe a Squawkabilly, depending on list, just sitting on the bench, ready to be killed at any point. And you can never remove your Gardevoir EX. The Turos being experimented with in some lists, but without refinement. I'm not a major fan of it, so I don't hate cutting the Turos. But it just means that a lot of previous Gardevoir's exploits have just been completely cut out of the deck. The deck is now vulnerable to Iono, which used to be the deck's completely strongest game, and you just lose a lot of the flexibility in the late game of the deck. But you are still pretty much the only deck in the format that can reliably one-shot everything with a 1-pricer. Drifloon can just completely murder Archaludon. There's not a lot of things that can do that. Drifloon can one-shot everything with Clefairy's EX or a Munkidori. It can one-shot a Dragapult. It can one-shot another Gardevoir EX. And Screamtail is obviously just amazing. You can one-shot Squawkabilly's base, and then you have Munkidori's or Rary Charms to one-shot even bigger things. This list did very, very well in Japan, and I was really surprised by how well Gardevoir did at that tournament in general. I think it got 2nd place, 3rd place, and another top 8 finish, if I remember correctly, where a few different ways those were built. I'm currently showing the top 8 builds, as I'm very skeptical of the second choice of completely cutting Drifloons and not just relying on Screamtail and Gardevoir EX as your main attackers typically. That does bring added consistency, which I do obviously enjoy with Gardevoir without refinement, but just having access to Drifloons and Abrasive Charms just seems really powerful to me in God of War. Especially with Lost Vacuum rotating, you're not going to see a lot of tool disruption, so you can reliably go above 70 HP, above 99 HP on Screamtail, and you don't have to worry about an item card getting a 1-hit KO. Another thing I want to point out about this list specifically is the Mortis Conviction. Just with refinement, it's always been amazing just being able to grow your hand with God of War. Mortis Conviction is basically the perfect card to grow your hands. There's not a lot of decks that just want to play like a couple Pokemon in play. Every deck wants to have either 4 or 5 base bench Pokemon at all times, or if they play Area Zero, even more than that. So just having access to Mortis Conviction just will win you the game when you get to draw 8 cards, and drawing 4 and 5 cards is still a very good supporter. Onwards to deck number 5, Raging Bolts. Being a big basic attacker that can one-shot everything in format is good, has been good, always will be good. Raging Bolt is definitely the best Pokemon that can take that role in this current format. We've seen people experiment with Roaring Moon, but without Dark Patch, it really loses a lot of its power. Sure, Raging Bolt also loses some consistency with Radiant Greninja, Trekking Shoes, Pokestop rotating out, but you get to replace it with a Noctowl engine, which just gives you whatever you need, so it's not that big of a hit for Raging Bolts. And you even still get to play like Crispins, so to just complement your starters and just almost guarantee the turn 2 KO on anything as long as you have a Hoothoot in play turn 1. Like, it's just consistent, does things well, and isn't really scared of anything. There's not many great 1 prizes in the format. You don't really have to be scared of anything that just doesn't die. You're not weak to any particular walls. You have the Koraidon, you have the Raging Bolt to hit through for a graph. Raging Bolt itself doesn't care about Cornerstone. So this is just a deck that doesn't take any majorly bad matchups currently, so I wouldn't feel bad about bringing this to Atlanta. It's fast, it's still good, it has a lot of HP. If you played Raging Bolt in the past, might as well play it more. You just have a lot of good options with even solid single prices at the moment, with Koraidon one-shotting Facetipity and Raging Bolt being able to kill anything on the bench as long as it's small enough. And with Counter Catcher and Prime Catcher, you always have the Sada play, gust up a big thing, and then kill like a Dreepy or a Curly or anything just on the bench. Onwards to number 4, we will present the Western Golden Boy of the format, Terrabox. Terrabox was initially popularized by Tor. That's the first Champions League of the format. We're currently looking at the top placing list from the Miyagi Champions League this past weekend. And this is a deck that the West has really enjoyed looking at. It was going into the format hailed as one of the 2 best decks alongside, spoiler alert, another one. And it just has the options to do anything. You have the Pikachu EX to one-shot everything in the format, basically. You have Clefairy EX to one-shot things that Pikachu can't one-shot. You have Terrapagos to have a lot of HP, do a lot of damage. You have Wellspring to kill 2 small things. In this list, you even have Iron Thorns to shut off abilities. And I really do like the inclusion of Iron Thorns in this list. It does sacrifice some consistency, going down to 1 Teal Mask, but with 4 Crispins and 2 Energy Switches, you're not as reliant on Teal Mask as it might seem. And being able to play Iron Thorns in a format where no one expects an Iron Thorns is absolutely amazing. The surprise factor is everything on that card. So seeing it be undiscovered in a format is definitely all the reason to play it, and I'm not surprised that it saw success as a one-off, especially considering this is pretty much the only deck that can play this card at the moment. Future Box is underwhelming. Miraidon has basically rotated. Lost Box has fully rotated. And I don't really see anywhere else Iron Fawns would fit. Quad Fawns doesn't really do that much, with Noctowl being the primary engine in the format. So this is just a good place to put it. And you still do get the versatility of the best engine in the format, with the Fan Rotums for the Hootoots, getting a Ditto turn 1, to just completely get everything you need. If you like a toolbox deck, then Terra Box is definitely the deck for you. On the next one, we have my personal favorite, Goldengo. Going into the format, I wasn't exactly sure what I thought, but I saw that Goldengo was doing well, and I DM'd my friend Ilya Kornilov to ask for a list. He got top 4 at LAIC with Goldengo. He's been crushing in some online tournaments with this list, and I've been trying it out in testing. It's been a lot better than I initially expected. Scizor is a very, very good card in the format at the moment, with Noctowl being everywhere, Area Zero being a good card, Cornerstone being a fairly prevalent wall. Just being able to one-shot all those 2 prizes with your solid 1 prizer is a big deal for this deck. And even with having a Reverie active, you can present 100% single prize board states, just turboing a Goldengo or something, to just really win back games that you weren't supposed to win, just as normal Goldengo. I've seen people experiment with the Dunsparce as well, but I think Reverie is enough of a draw engine. You still have Goldengo, you have solid draw supporters. Mortis Conviction can draw up to 8 cards. If you ever get a Mortis Conviction on a 5 to 8 card hand, you really don't need the Dunsparce. And the Dunsparce EX is a much worse wall breaker than Scizor is. Rest of the list is also very solid in my opinion. You have Lavintia as a solid stadium bump. You don't really have that much of a need for Munkidori, with double Turo Palpad, being able to pick up your Goldingers against Dragapult. You should have everything you need to answer every matchup, and you're just a deck that is very, very good at one-shotting things in a format where it's not that easy to one-shot things. I do think that if you haven't decided on a list, or if there's a card you want to try in the list, I don't know if the Palpad is entirely necessary. I've been enjoying it in testing, I still think it's good, but that's definitely the flex spots in this list for now, in my opinion. Going onward to the number 2 deck, and the deck that is definitely the most hyped in this part of the world. Terrapagos has been in every Discord server of mine. Everyone is testing Terrapagos, it's been crushing every online tournament almost, but it has not seen any success in Japan as far as I'm aware of. But on paper, it makes a lot of sense. You have Terrapagos having 230 HP, being able to charge itself up pretty quickly, just Jewel Seeker for Crispin, Last Trumpet in the late game, Energy Switch, wherever you have a spare energy. And you just already have a lot of HP with 230, and then Curly Wall up to 290, and then Bravery Charm up to 340, and you're basically an invincible turtle. There's nothing in the format that can reliably one-shot you every turn, and you only really get one-shot by a few things in the format, and Raging Bolt and Goldengo aren't gonna fill up the top tables in day 2, despite probably being solid plays. So I think you just have a very good survival factor at the moment, and that allows you to really make do of Munkidori in a great way. Hitting for 240 is solid with Terrapagos, with but with Monkey Dories you can take it up and you should be able to one-shot most things in the format. And then you still have the Lilith Lefari for when you can't one-shot the Dragapults in the formats. And this deck definitely is the best user of Cornerstone in my opinion in the formats. Just being able to do that Jewel Seeker, Crispin, Energy Switch to get a fresh Cornerstone in the active, and just having a deck that already relies on being very tanky, playing multiple turns, having the natural 2-0 to clear 2 prizes whenever you need to wipe your board, scoop up Cyclone if you need that. Just makes you very good at having the option to present a Cornerstone, put the opponent in check, and if they can't answer it, they just lose very, very quickly. I think Terrapagos is definitely the deck that most top players are going to gravitate the most, because it's just been super hyped and it's been a deck that typically has been on the forethoughts of everyone. Tor brought it to second place at the regionals, and as far as I'm aware, every top player I've talked to has at least dabbled with the idea of playing Terrapagos to some tournaments. Card just is fundamentally good, and that doesn't really change for post rotation. Double Turbo is a big loss, but you still get a very solid energy acceleration engine with the Crispins. Onwards to number 1, we are still in 2025, and Badoo is still a card that exists. Dragapult is the best deck in the format. It has been the best deck in the format for a while. Rotation didn't really change that. The deck did have a couple important cards that were lost to rotation, but you're not exactly forced to get a for lands. You have Arven for Body Puff instead, that's fine. You have Jack for your Dracloaks, that's fine. Sure, it's a downgrade, but it's not one where you don't exactly get to play the game anymore, and your opponent's deck is typically downgraded a lot more than slight downgrades to Dragapults. You do, of course, miss the Luminion, the Forest Steelstone, but those were more luxury cards than anything, as we've seen from how Dragapult is still dominating. If I remember correctly, this is the exact list that won the Miyagi League last weekend, and it's a list that incorporates a lot of things that I'm a big fan of. The XP share is really awesome, just allowing you to move your energy acceleration away from Crispin. That can be awkward with drawing all of your energies and having to play Super Rod if you don't want that to happen. Super Rod is just a bad card. And more importantly, allowing you to switch your ace spec from Sparkling Crystal back to Unfist Amp. Unfist Amp is definitely the ace spec I've enjoyed the most in this deck, and I just think it's the best ace spec by far. The game plan of Dragapult is, and always has been, to put a Badoo in the active, Itchy Pollen, put a Badoo in the active, Itchy Pollen. Phantom Dive, okay, you can't kill me, cool. Curse Blast, Phantom Dive, Gave. And being able to unfist amp your opponent to 2 and put them in check by doing that initial Phantom Dive is a lot more powerful than an Iono to 4 or even an Iono to 3. So just having the option of the most powerful disruption we have in the game is really valuable for me, especially in a deck that really doesn't need to proc your opponent's Serendipity if you don't want to. So if you did play Dragapult before rotation, then I would highly recommend sticking to Dragapult at least as one of the decks you consider for the event or for League Cups. Dragapult is going nowhere. I would expect Dragapult to win the event if there's not some crazy anti-Dragapult tech going around. Lily's Clefairy is annoying, but you do still one-shot it as a 2-prizer, and you should be able to just close the game very efficiently with the XP share. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching, and I bid all of you good luck in your quest for the $10,000 and a direct invitation to the 2025 Pokemon World Championships. I have been M. Hagen, and I will see you next time.